What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And today I'm going to be going over day 3 of training camp, and I'm going to be totally upfront and honest with you. There isn't a ton to cover on today's episode. It's probably going to be a fairly short episode, and in a way, I feel like we've kind of earned this. And what I mean by that is it's been a fairly crazy week, from an Aaron Rodgers epic press conference to Rodgers returning to the Packers. Randall Cobb is back. We've got the Randall Cobb trade and his press conference, a couple Brian Gutekunst conferences, the start of training camp. Like, it was a whirlwind week. And then, you've got Dennis Kelly. You've got Dennis Kelly wearing David Bakhtiari's jersey. And I'm sure I'm missing 100 things in my recap here, but it has been a fairly crazy week. And we always talk about the calm before the storm. This felt very much like the calm after the storm. It was a very nondescript, very casual Friday practice. And, Matt LaFleur mentioned prior to Friday's practice that it was going to be a little bit more low-key. Usually when there's 3 days in a row, he likes to kind of scale things back a little bit and make things a little bit easier. Mercedes Lewis had a veteran rest day, and overall, it was just a much more casual practice. And even at the end, when you go through walkthroughs on these type of days, these were crawl throughs for the Packers. And it was a very slow and steady, easygoing day for the Packers at Friday's training camp. But doesn't mean there weren't some takeaways, and I'm going to get to those right now. There's nothing else to get to, so I'm going to get to those right now. Let's start off with just kind of the players of the day, if you will. For those of you who followed me for a while, I love the underdog stories, and I love the Tim Boyles and the Raven Greens and those type of players, the Alex Lights, players that are undrafted free agents and work their way up into the rotation. I love those type of stories, but some days you just have to give credit to the studs and the stars, and that was Friday. Aaron Rodgers, DeVante Adams were by far and away the best players on the day. And, Rodgers was on fire in red zone sessions, firing to Adams and completing pass after pass. He had a touchdown to Amari Rodgers. He was just in a zone, especially literally in the red zone. And then DeVante Adams, he caught a fade against Eric Stokes. He caught a deep touchdown against Josh Jackson. DeVante Adams, and I've mentioned this numerous occasions on my Grading the Pack articles and here on the podcast and on the audio podcast and everything like that. DeVante Adams is just in the matrix right now. And what I mean by that is, while everyone else is going a million miles per hour, he is just calm and smooth and steady, and nothing phases him. And I want to talk about the touchdown over Josh Jackson for a moment, because Rodgers throws up, it's one-on-one, Josh Jackson, DeVante Adams on the outside. And, DeVante, He beat him a little bit off the line, but Josh Jackson had good coverage up until the end of the play. So they're running stride for stride, one-on-one, and Rodgers just throws up a ball, and you're watching this, and Josh Jackson did a poor job of getting his head turned, and once it got to the catch point, Jackson was a mess. There's no other way around it. So Jackson was a mess. He had good coverage up until the catch point, but that's so much of it. If you're into scouting corners, when you're scouting a corner, don't just watch what they do at the line of scrimmage and running with the receiver and if they can cover him step for step. Watch what they do at the catch point, because so many corners struggle getting their head turned, locating the ball, making a play on the ball, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's the final phase of everything, right? It doesn't matter if you played somebody well at the line of scrimmage, ran for him step to step, covered him like a blanket. If at the catch point you can't figure out what the heck to do and the receiver is making the catch, you've still failed. And in a way, that's what Josh Jackson had happen on this play. Good at the line of scrimmage, good running step for step for him. And then you get to the catch point, and this is the classic Josh Jackson just panicking at the catch point, right? Usually he grabs. In this case, he's just kind of all over the place. Whereas DeVante Adams, you're watching this and you're this is just the ball's there and nothing's going to happen. And then DeVante Adams at the last second, just full stop, Josh Jackson keeps going. DeVante Adams full stop, just completely separates again at the very last second. and then throws his hands up at literally the very last second, snags the ball, goes in for a touchdown. And you're watching it live, and you're like, this is just going to end up like a mess of humanity. Jackson and Adams are somehow going to collide, or it's going to fall like helplessly incomplete. And Adams knew what he was doing the entire time. And you didn't know it at the time. You're watching step for step. You're watching the ball in the air. And you're just thinking, like, you don't see receivers do this type of stuff. Like, we've seen a lot of good receivers, like Greg Jennings, James Jones, Jordy Nelson. Like, these guys are not coming down as clean. Maybe a couple of them come down with this catch, but not like DeVante Adams did. To be like a half a second before the play and look like you're completely covered, and then at the very last second, put your foot in the ground, stop, easy separation, late hands, catch, walk into the end zone as Josh Jackson is falling over. And again, we're not comparing, it's like, it's not like this is DeVante Adams versus, Jalen Ramsey here, right? It's Josh Jackson, but just the way that he handled that catch, there was never a panic. There was never a concern. And it's just, DeVante gets so much credit, rightfully so, for his releases at the line of scrimmage, which are number one in the league. But his hands at the point of attack and what he does with 50-50 balls and, just making plays at the catch point is also a plus, trait for him. And he does it as well as anyone. And it's sort of why he wants to be paid as the number one wide receiver in the league, which, again, deservedly so. So that was Rodgers to DeVante Adams, number one. Later in practice, we had a red zone activity, and Jair Alexander had fallen out of practice. I'll more on that in just a moment. But we've got a fade to the left side, and again, red zone. And Adams it's just one-on-one, DeVante Adams versus Eric Stokes. They bring pressure, and sorry, Eric Stokes, welcome to the NFL. Just no chance. I mean, literally, like, you could critique Eric Stokes in the play. I legitimately think any corner in that same position, you're just toast. Like, DeVante Adams gets off the line of scrimmage, and then he fakes inside, does a little stutter step outside, and the ball's just there. And Eric Stokes, what are you going to do, especially as a rookie? And again, it's one of those welcome to the NFL moments, but you could put Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, as good as they are in that situation. Just what Rodgers and Adams did on that play, it was pure poetry in motion. And yeah, it's a welcome to the NFL rookie moment for Eric Stokes. But that's one that you tip your cap, give a round of applause, and you live to play another down, because it's like Steph Curry pulling up from like 10 feet behind the 3-point line. And you're happy to allow him to have the shot, and then he just sinks it, nothing but net. And you're like, all right, like, I'm not going to be out there that far, hand in your face. Like, you just have to tip your cap at some point to great play, and that's what Adams and Rodgers were on that play. And again, it was a fantastic day from Aaron Rodgers and DeVante Adams. That said, there was a route double move, DeVante Adams versus Jair Alexander, and Alexander covered it perfectly. That's where Rodgers wanted to go. Because he covered it perfectly, led to I don't remember, honestly, if it was a throwaway or a quote-unquote sack, but Rodgers had nowhere to go on the play, and that's because Jair Alexander had perfect coverage on DeVante Adams. And that's just one of those battles where you just watch it any time that you can, because you have, top two corner, right? Maybe Jalen Ramsey, you can make an argument, whatever, but to me, top two corner in Jair Alexander, top one wide receiver in DeVante Adams, and seeing those guys get to go head-to-head and iron sharpening iron. It's so fun to watch. Yesterday, as I mentioned, I thought Adams got the best of Alexander on the deep route. Today, matched up one-on-one, Alexander, in that specific situation, got the better of DeVante Adams. We did see a little bit of an offensive line shuffle, so still for the most part, it was Elton Jenkins at left tackle, John Runyon Jr., Josh Myers, Lucas Patrick, and then Billy Turner, left to right. However, we did see Dennis Kelly get some snaps at right tackle, which moved Billy Turner to left tackle. We also saw Ben Braden get some snaps at right guard as well. So a little bit more offensive line shuffling on Friday. It's the majority of the snaps have still been, again, Jenkins, John Runyon Jr., Josh Myers, Lucas Patrick, and Billy Turner. But now with Dennis Kelly in camp, there could be some other options that they have, and we'll see how they kind of do this moving forward. The one interesting aspect is that Royce Newman, who got multiple looks, it was, I believe, left guard, and right tackle, where he got reps with the number ones and OTAs and mini camps, has yet to sniff any of those snaps with the number ones in the starting offense in training camp so far. So we'll see if that changes, but so far it has not. And it's really been, the same kind of handful of guys with Braden and now Dennis Kelly getting a few snaps here and there. Last but not least, Jair Alexander did go down in a period, and that sounds more aggressive than what it is. He kind of took himself to the side, worked with a trainer for a little bit. They were doing some stretches, almost looked like just like cramping. And then after team period was done and they went to the walkthroughs, Jair was out there helmet on in the walkthroughs as the starting corner. And then at the very last second before it started, he just kind of walked to the side and Josh Jackson came in. I wouldn't read too much into it at this point. It certainly did not look like anything serious. It looked like just either cramping or maybe just like a small muscle type issue. We'll see if he's back out there on Saturday for practice, where Matt LaFleur said they were going to ramp things up a little bit more. Tuesday is likely the first day of pads, so we're still a little bit of ways away from that. But again, mostly a nondescript practice. We'll see if things do in fact ramp up on Saturday. Looking forward to that. I'll be right back here with a brand new episode covering everything that happened in Saturday's practice. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.